If it looks like a Rothschild and it smells like a Rothschild, then it is a central banker. And many, many, many good men have died fighting the central bank. Died fighting the central banking wars. Every war that we've been in is a war that the same banks fund both sides. I mean, if that's not a racket, what is? Yeah, okay, here. Since I have a minute here, I will give out the special thanks that are due. All right, we'd like to thank UCY.TV because they're putting on this live stream. This is something new this year. Still working some of the kinks out of it. The next time we do this, it'll be flawless. American Free Press, they had our backs. They have our back. Thank you to these guys, Johnny Mac, Poker Face, all these guys who've been at it for 20 years. A lot of us have been in this movement for the last 5, 6, 10 years. Well, Paul and his friends in the band, these guys have been at it for 20 freaking years now. Pardon my language, 20 years. 20 years. And I guess it takes 20 years to see who your real friends are sometimes. But I'm proud as hell to be here. I want to thank all the people that couldn't make it this year. Some of my friends from last year, Wendy. What's up, Wendy? From my good friends who I'm proud to say I'm not only friends with the Hutari, I'm going to say that I'm proud to be dear friends with some of the members of not just the Hutari, but many of the Militiakin folk. We've got people from all around here today. There has been a heat index warning, so, I mean, it is what it is, but we're going to put on a show just like we promised. We always have and we always will. Every time I tell you to come down here for 3 days, that you'll be entertained, I come through. We come through. Now, we were just talking, we were just listening to some of the dots being connected. I'm just kind of trying to wait for we've got a speaker. Brother Greg Denigan coming, but he's getting his gear on, so he'll be here in a minute. But I just wanted to make sure that everybody knew that it's now's time, and we're going to be kicking off. We're going to have a lot of good speakers. I may have spoke quite a bit yesterday, so I may try to stay in the background a little bit today. It's kind of people are clapping. Jeez. All right then. No, I'm just joking. I'm just kidding. This is filler. This is filler. This is for my friends, really. This is just for my friends. Those of you who have listened to my show that I've known for the last year, that I've been coming down here, and I've been coming down here for the last few years, and I'm really happy. There's people I can't wait to meet, and I guess that's the essence. We've never had any overriding, underlying agenda, or there's never been any occurrence that we've, been accused of here. And I think really being accused of denying Holocaust, denying things like that, being accused of being hateful, hate mongers, and all that has brought some of our friends together, and really it's really pissed some people off. Yeah, I know it kind of sounds like some people who may be listening in the neighborhood don't understand. It may sound like we're un-American, like we're commies or something, but that's not true. Our government are commies. They're Bolsheviks. And you don't need to look any further than the Communist Manifesto. You don't need to look any further than the policies implemented the last 10 years, or the last 30 years, the last 100 years. Now, we heard G. Efford Griffin mentioned, but you can't mention G. Efford Griffin without mentioning Eustace Mullins in The Secrets of the Federal Reserve. Eustace Mullins took his research just one step further. And as I said, if it looks like a Zionist and it smells like a Zionist, it is a central banker. And central banks have caused every boom, every bust. They fund both sides of every war. And so we're not un-American. And I say God bless Americans. The Father's blessed us with a wonderful weekend. Yeah, it's pretty hot. But at least it's not raining sideways. And after the event, thanks to our good friend Vinny Menio,
thank you.
And we'll be providing his email address. But we will have on top of, just like last year. Now, I didn't make all the videos public. I only made a few select videos public, like James Traficant and some of my friends in Poker Face. Until the day before, Vinny, the day before Freedom Palooza, I made all the videos available just for that night, and a lot of people watched them. And they were excited that they were going to see some of these speakers live because they couldn't be here. And if you enjoyed seeing this live, then you need to, well, you don't need to do anything. It's our pleasure. It's my pleasure. It's the pleasure of UCY.TV. This is not a Patriot Panhandlers event. We're not trying to sock you. People have showed up who didn't have enough. It doesn't matter. We're letting you in. All right? We want people here. We want people to be informed. These are some of the topics that you're not catching on anywhere, any of the other alternative networks. A few. But you get them mixed with a whole bunch of hate, a whole bunch of hook nose this and that. Here we're presenting facts. Presenting facts in a logical, calm, rational manner. And that's the key. That's the key. We're not standing up here, well, I do. I wave my hands. But we're not up here acting like lunatics. We're not burning crosses. We're not trying to force feed our opinions. Each one of the presenters, each one of the people here are presenting facts. Years and years and years of research. Art Larson will be up here in a little while. Thousands and thousands of hours of research. You can go to noplaceforcorruption.com. You can download his PDF, and you will find out that it's not only AIPAC, but it's the Jewish mob, the Jewish mafia, Sheldon Adelson. Yeah. And you don't need to look any further than your public schools to find them. No place for hate means no place for white boys, no place for individuals. It means we've all got to be one. We've all got to hyphenate. You got to be a black American. You got to be an Italian American. You got to be a German American. I'm an American American. My father was an American American. I can trace my lineage back. But the only lineage I need to trace is to the place I was born, which is Central New York. So I'm a New Yorker, I'm an American. And if you don't like that, take me out of my country. Just because I oppose the views, our country was founded, listen, our country was founded on opposing views, on people. We had the Federalist Papers, the Anti-Federalist Papers. There's been a battle since before the Declaration of Independence was even signed, was even issued, as to whether we should even have government. Some people wanted a king. The bankers all wanted a central bank. We've tried it. It failed. We tried it again. It failed. We were fooled. Cajoled into having them. You're going to hear more and more about sound money today. Jim Conner Jr. is going to talk to us about money, about real money. And like I said yesterday, money is, I suppose, in the eye of the beholder, but there's always going to be a money, there's always going to be a currency. But what we don't need is centralized economic planning and central banks. Because the central banks have allowed these major corporations, these global corporations, with their trickle-down crack theory, where they trickle down little bits of crack to the executives of these multinational corporations who go around and buy up everybody else, every other little small corporation. You could be a copier corporation, and then you feel like you've made it, and somebody offers you $1 million for your company. Well, now you've been bought by a company who owns 10 companies, and they get bought by a company who owns 100 companies, and then they get bought by a company that owns all of them. You know, you end up being owned by the one company out there now. And I'm not going to name any names, but you can just look it up, and it goes the same for oil, for defense, for any of the things that you find at Walmart. Whew. And these central banks, because of the fact, especially the Federal Reserve, the Federal Reserve's charter's up. And we ought not renew it. Not only should we not renew it, we ought to take a page from the people of Iceland, and we ought to start putting people in prison. All right? Is it too much to ask that a criminal be given due process? We don't want kangaroo courts. We don't want lynch mobs. We want federal indictments, maybe even world indictments in The Hague. But it all hinges on the central banks, because they have the crack that controls everything. I call it crack because it is. It's addicting. You start letting that money trickle down, and then they get to control the policies. You get to Washington. We removed the Glass-Steagall Act that completely churned Wall Street into a casino. People who had their private money in some of these firms find out in the last 10 years that their money was invested, and oops, it's gone. And nobody goes to jail. They give us a Bernie Madoff. But they didn't bail out any of the Midwest farmers whose money got stolen. They bailed out Goldman Sachs. They bailed out AIG. $16 trillion went to foreign banks and corporations. They're printing $44 billion a month with their QE, with their new QE program. $40 billion a month with their Operation Twist. What's that doing to the value of what you're holding in your pocket? $80 trillion, $80 billion. Each and every month, man. Each and every month. Competing with the Ben Franklins in your pocket. Remember, war is when the government tells you who the enemy is. Revolution is when you decide who the enemy is. And we've been fooled into a lot of wars. You heard. You heard how we were manipulated into World War I, how we were manipulated into World War II. And I would venture to say we were manipulated into the actions that were taken in Korea and Vietnam. Some of the things that you probably didn't know about Vietnam is it was Ford, were American automobile manufacturers supplying the North Vietnamese through Russia with the parts for their deuce and a halves to move all their materiel down to kill more Americans. The Gulf of Tonkin, that never happened. I mean, these are the things that you're going to hear about. These are the things that we talk about. And these are serious issues, and we're speaking facts. We're not talking about theories. We're not talking about our own personal beliefs. You can look up Eustace Mullins. You can look up Art Larson, No Place for Corruption. You can go to some of these websites, and you can find out exactly what we're talking about. The USS Liberty. You can find out who our real enemies are. And our real enemies are absolutely 100% Zionist banking. You see, it's all been boiled down. It all boils back to one family. No, and that doesn't mean there's a bunch of Rothschilds running around with knives. It means they're giving money to a bunch of lunatics who run around with knives, and they make our lives dangerous. Well, we're supposed to have. Brother Greg is supposed to be coming up here any moment now. I'm not going to keep rambling here. You guys are probably sick of hearing me. But listen, man, the one thing that you can do is make some of these, when these videos become available, talk about this stuff. Don't talk about the ADL writing us up or the cowards who canceled on us because they don't want to be seen. Don't talk about that. Talk about Art Larson in his presentation. Talk about Jim Traficant in his presentation. Talk about Jim Condit Jr. and the information they brought out. And this stuff will be available, so you can pause it, then rewind it, then pause it, then fast forward it. You're going to be able to get this information.
I'm going to talk about you. Didn't see that one coming, did you?
Yeah. Yeah, no, the controversy is over. It happened. It's the past. It's the information is the important thing. And the important thing is we're not, this is not an event full of squatters and panhandlers. This is an event of hardworking Americans, of people who have spent countless hours bringing truth to people. Like I said before, Paul and Poker Face, 20 years. Art and Jim and James, between them we have, literally decades and decades and decades of research. And if they all had different conclusions, it'd be one thing, but they don't. And they have conclusions that all meet. And you can tell that they're true truth tellers because they don't stop. They don't follow the trail and then stop before they get to mention the Zionist bankers, before they get to mention the true money masters. And everybody knows me and knows I'm not a hater, man. I don't hate the player, I hate the game. And I do have a stake in this, and I do have a right to speak, and I do have a right to an opinion, and I have the right to question. I was born here. I wasn't asked to be born here. None of you were. They didn't hand out a questionnaire. So here we are, and we can either not say anything, not do anything, and just assume that somebody else will do it for us, or we can get out there ourselves. Wow. And we can spread the truth as we see it, logically, without being hostile, without being hateful, without turning people away. And that's what the SPLC, the ADL, the JIDF, all these people, these professional people who like to take guys like here and slander them. And I'll be honest with you, you may not know what the true America is if you haven't been locked up, if you haven't been abused by the system. I've been abused by the system. I entered the system. I'm state raised. I entered the system at the age of 12. The school. And I'm going to warn you right now. The school can initiate some pretty horrible things. And I found myself in foster homes, in the juvenile. I'm not going to spend a lot of time. We got another speaker coming. But unless you've been treated like property, out of hand, got a problem, tough tutu, rack in or change this or do that. You're taught that there's something fundamentally wrong with you in this system of abuse, where we talk about corrections, but our actions are the exact opposite. When in reality, all we learn in school is do what you're told or you'll be punished. Well, they put me in the system and I saw a lot of children abused, meek. It's a system where there's two kinds of people. There's sharks and there's guppies. And like I say all the time, you don't have to be a man-eating shark, but you just can't be a guppy, because the system will eat you up. They look for people like that to abuse. People think you're rat if you turn state's evidence that you're somehow easing, the burden on yourself, when really the state holds everybody in contempt, and especially rat finks. They hold you in contempt. So unless you've really been through the system, sometimes it may be hard to understand. Everybody thinks, well, then you're a criminal. Well, labeling people makes it easy to not care about them. You can just say he's a delinquent, he's an alcoholic. That guy's a criminal. He's an ex-con. That's a felon. He's a racketeer. You ready, Greg?
No, I'm fine.
All right.